All right, hey everyone. Thinking about bringing a pet into your apartment.
It's a big decision.
It is. But don't worry, we're here to help. We're going to be diving into this awesome article called Best Small Pets for Apartments, a complete guide.
Sounds perfect for our deep dive.
I think so. We're going to figure out, how to choose the right pet, how to, keep them happy and healthy.
And without turning your place into a zoo.
Exactly. Okay, so first things first. Why are small pets like the thing for apartment living these days?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to convenience, right? I mean, smaller spaces, smaller messes,
Yeah.
and often they're, less expensive too,
Yeah.
which, I mean, who doesn't love that?
Yeah.
Especially in a city.
Right, right. So it's perfect for like the busy city life. But I mean, you could just get a goldfish. That's pretty convenient.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's more to it than just like practicality. There's also the emotional side of
Oh,
things.
absolutely.
Studies have actually shown that having a pet, even a small one, can like really help with stress relief,
Wow.
even lower blood pressure.
It's like a furry little stress ball you can actually cuddle.
Exactly.
Imagine like coming home after a long day and there's your guinea pig like munching on some hay or your hamster like running on its wheel.
Yeah, or just the sound of a bird chirping.
Yeah. It's so peaceful. And it's not just about us, right? It's great for families too.
Absolutely. Teaches responsibility, empathy,
Mm-hmm.
sets kids up to be great pet owners down the road.
Yeah. Okay, I am sold on the WHY. But now the big question, which CH small pet is the right roommate for you? The article actually lists like a bunch of top contenders, and we're going to go through them. So first up, hamsters. Those little guys.
The tiny night owls of the pet world.
Yeah. Content to like do their own thing on their little wheels while we're all sleeping.
Exactly.
So like built-in entertainment, no complaints from the neighbors. But what about those tiny teeth?
Ah, yes, the teeth. Hamsters' teeth, they never stop growing.
Never stop growing.
Never. So they need to be constantly chewing,
Yeah.
to keep them trimmed.
Oh, wow. A centimeter a month.
It's a lot of chewing.
Wow. What kind of toys can even handle that?
Well, you'd be surprised what those little guys can chomp through. Wooden chew toys, cardboard tubes, even, safe branches from fruit trees.
Okay. So next up we have guinea pigs. These guys seem to be like the social butterflies of this small pet world.
Yeah, definitely more vocal, more interactive than hamsters.
Yeah.
They really thrive in pairs or small groups, actually. They've got this whole, language of squeaks and whistles.
Oh, that's so cute. A whole tiny symphony happening in your living room.
Yeah.
But wouldn't multiple guinea pigs like need a much bigger cage?
That's true. You'll definitely need a larger cage for a pair or a group, compared to like a solo hamster. It's
Yeah.
about, I think, finding that balance between what they need and what you have space for.
Right. So maybe a single guinea pig if you have a really small apartment. What about something a little more like song and dance? Birds.
Birds, finches, parakeets, they bring that, touch of nature and melody into your home. Not too loud for the neighbors, though.
Yeah. It's like having a tiny concert every morning. What are some key things, though, to remember about caring for birds in an apartment?
Well, first of all, birds, even smalls, they need space, right? They need a cage where they can fly around a little bit,
Yeah.
climb, and they need enrichment, too.
Like toys and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. They need stuff to keep them entertained, or they can get bored.
Okay, so we've got the energetic hamsters, the social guinea pigs, and the musical birds. What about something a little more low-key?
For those who prefer a more, laid-back companion, you might consider reptiles, leopard geckos, corn snakes, surprisingly well-suited to apartment living.
Reptiles in an apartment, that's new.
It is, but it can be a really rewarding experience.
Okay, but wouldn't they need, like, special heating and lighting?
That's true. Reptiles are cold-blooded, so they do need a heat lamp and, maybe a UVB light to kind of mimic their natural environment. But once that's set up, they're actually quite low maintenance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm picturing, like, a sleek little gecko hanging out in a terrarium, adding a little, like, exotic vibe to the place. But what about the cuddle factor? Are they good for that?
Well, they're not exactly, known for cuddling like a guinea pig.
Yeah.
But many reptiles do enjoy being handled, and
Yeah.
you can form, a bond with them.
It's just a different kind of, like, interaction.
Right, exactly.
Okay, and of course we can't forget about fish, that whole serene underwater world.
Aquariums are amazing.
Yeah.
They really can be, like living art.
Yeah, I love that. But I've heard that like setting up an aquarium and keeping it going can be a lot of work. Is it really like a good fit for, someone who's busy and lives in a small space?
Well, it depends, right? If you keep it simple, with a few hardy fish, it can be fairly low maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want a really elaborate aquascape with like, sensitive species,
Mm.
it can be more demanding.
So it's about choosing the right fish and the right setup to like match your lifestyle.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've met the contenders: hamsters, guinea pigs, birds, reptiles, fish. It's amazing how much variety there is in the small pet world.
There really is. I think
Yeah.
it speaks to like the diversity of people who live in apartments these days
Yeah.
and their different needs and lifestyles.
Right. So now you've narrowed down your choices. You've picked your pet. How do you actually like transform your apartment into like a pet paradise
Right.
without sacrificing space or style?
Well, that's where the fun begins. It's all about maximizing your space with like creative cage solutions and maybe a little bit of DIY magic.
Ooh, DIY magic. Okay, so let's talk cages. I'm thinking like those traditional hamster cages with colorful plastic wheels and tunnels. Are those like the best option?
They can be a good starting point.
Yeah.
But bigger is usually better.
Right, of course. More space to move around, explore. But how do you fit a bigger cage into a small apartment?
Vertical space. That's the key. Think shelves, multi-level cages.
Ah, so it's like building a tiny penthouse.
Exactly.
Love it. And I remember the article mentioned a DIY hamster playpen made from a storage bin.
Yeah, that's a great example of how you can be creative and, create a fun and safe space for your pet without spending a lot of money.
Okay, I am inspired. But let's be real for a second. Pets, no matter how cute and cuddly, can also be messy. How do you keep your apartment, clean and fresh with a small pet around?
That's where, being a responsible pet owner really comes in.
Right.
Regular spot cleaning, weekly deep cleans of their habitat,
Yeah.
and definitely pet-friendly cleaning supplies.
Right. Nobody wants their apartment smelling like, a hamster cage. What about noise control? I don't want to be that neighbor whose pet is like keeping everyone up all night.
That's a good point. Especially in apartments with, thin walls. You have to be considerate of your neighbors. For nocturnal pets, you can try putting their cage in a room that's farther away from shared walls.
Oh, that makes sense.
And for, vocal pets like guinea pigs or birds, you might want to think about soundproofing.
Soundproofing.
Yeah, things like rugs and curtains can help absorb some of the sound.
Wow, so many things to consider. Okay, so we've got the cage situation sorted out. We're on top of cleaning and we're being mindful of our neighbors. What about the like daily grind of pet ownership? The essential tasks.
Well, obviously feeding is, the most important thing.
Right.
Each type of pet has, its own dietary needs, so it's important to do your research there.
Yeah.
But then there's playtime. That's the fun part.
That's what I was thinking.
Social interaction, mental stimulation. These are all key for a happy and healthy pet.
Okay, so in part one of our small pet deep dive, we've talked about why small pets are so popular. We've met some of the amazing contenders, and we've even learned some valuable tips for, creating a pet-friendly apartment. But now we need to address the elephant in the room, or maybe the hamster in the cage.
The part that some people might be, a little nervous about, the health challenges.
Right. Nobody wants to think about their little buddy getting sick. But being aware of potential health issues is like part of being a responsible pet parent, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be diving into in part two. We'll explore some common health issues and how to recognize the signs early on.
Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be back with more insights to help you make informed decisions and keep your small pet happy and healthy.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of small pets for apartment living.
In part one, we talked about like all the benefits of being a small pet parent, but also some of the, the challenges. But let's talk about these adorable creatures in detail.
Yeah. Let's break it down by species. Each one is so different.
Totally. So hamsters, those little guys, they're like the tiny ninjas of the pet world.
They really are. Nocturnal, agile. They kind of have their own little world going on.
And they're happy in it, which, makes them like perfect for people who are busy or have limited space.
Exactly. They're pretty content to be on their own, unlike some other small pets.
Yeah, it's like having a tiny roommate who like totally respects your boundaries and sleeps when you're awake. But, just because they're like low maintenance doesn't mean they don't need enrichment.
Right, exactly. They still need plenty of opportunities to like exercise.
Mm-hmm.
explore their environment.
So like wheels, tunnels, chew toys.
All of that. And especially chew toys. We talked about how fast those teeth grow, right?
Yeah, a centimeter a month. That's crazy. What happens if like they don't have enough stuff to chew on?
Well, if their teeth get too long, they can have, trouble eating.
Yeah.
And in really bad cases, their teeth can actually grow into their gums,
Oh.
which is, really painful for them.
So making sure they have the right chew toys is like super important. Okay, guinea pigs. These guys are like the opposite of hamsters when it comes to being social.
Oh, absolutely. Guinea pigs are super social. They really thrive in pairs or even small groups.
I love their little squeaks and whistles.
Oh, yeah. It's like they're having these tiny conversations.
I've heard that guinea pigs can be prone to like certain health issues.
Yeah, that's true. One thing to watch out for is scurvy.
Scurvy.
Yeah, they can't actually produce their own vitamin C, unlike a lot of other animals.
Really?
Yeah, so they need to get it from their diet. And if they don't, they can, develop scurvy, which can cause all sorts of problems like weakness and even bleeding gums.
So making sure they have enough vitamin C is super important. What are some good sources of vitamin C for guinea pigs?
Well, fresh fruits and vegetables are, always a good bet. Bell
Yeah.
peppers, kale, parsley, things like that.
Okay, great. Now, birds, they
Uh-huh.
bring a whole other dimension to like apartment living.
Yeah, with their colors and their songs.
It's like having a tiny concert right in your living room.
Exactly. And they're pretty low maintenance as long as you get them the right setup.
Right. They need a big enough cage so they can fly around.
And toys. Lots of toys to keep them entertained.
Speaking of, setting up the right environment, I've heard that birds can be really sensitive to like drafts and temperature changes. Is that like a big concern in an apartment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Birds are, delicate creatures. Make sure their cage is away from any windows or, air conditioning vents.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about hamsters, guinea pigs, and birds. Now, what about something a little more low-key?
Reptiles. They're a great option if you want a pet, but, you know, maybe you don't have a ton of time or space.
I'm picturing a leopard gecko just like chilling in its terrarium.
Yeah. They're really fascinating to watch, and they don't need a lot of attention.
But they do need the right environment, right? Like
Yeah.
the temperature and humidity have to be just right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're cold-blooded, so you have to kind of recreate their natural habitat.
Okay, and what about like handling reptiles? I've always been a little nervous about, accidentally hurting them.
I get it, but most reptiles are actually pretty docile. You just have to handle them gently and with respect.
So just like learn the proper techniques for your specific type of reptile. Okay, and last but not least, we have fish.
The serene world of fish.
Aquariums are so calming and beautiful, and surprisingly low maintenance once you get them set up.
Yeah, they really are. It's like having a little piece of the ocean in your apartment.
I know. But setting up an aquarium, for a beginner can be a little intimidating.
It can be, but there are, lots of resources out there. And the key is to start simple.
Okay, what about that thing I've heard about, like cycling an aquarium? What exactly is that?
So cycling an aquarium is basically like creating a healthy environment for the fish. You're establishing beneficial bacteria in the tank.
So it's like a mini ecosystem. Okay, that makes sense. We've covered the basics of each pet species, but what are some things that people might be, like, surprised to learn about these animals?
Well, for starters, hamsters are actually really intelligent.
They are.
Yeah, they can learn tricks and navigate mazes. And their cheek pouches, where they store food, those are amazing.
I love watching them stuff those full of food. What about guinea pigs?
Guinea pigs are so vocal, like they have all these different sounds they make to communicate.
Yeah, and they're really cuddly, too.
They are. They love to be held. Now, birds, those guys can be mischievous.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. They love to explore
Mm.
and get into everything. So you definitely have to bird-proof your home.
And some birds can even learn to talk.
That's right. What about reptiles? A lot of people think they're, cold and unfeeling, but that's not true at all.
Yeah, I've heard that some reptiles can actually be quite affectionate.
Yeah. And with proper care, they can live for a really long time.
What about fish?
You know what's interesting about fish? Each one has its own personality.
Really?
Yeah. It's amazing to watch them interact with each other.
Okay, so we've talked about the surprises, the fun stuff, but let's be real for a minute. What are some of the challenges of owning a small pet?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that small pets can be fragile
Yeah.
and they can be prone to certain health problems.
Right. It's important to remember that owning a pet is a big responsibility, no matter how small they are.
Yeah. You have to be prepared to provide for all their needs: food, water, a clean environment, veterinary care.
And, they can be messy.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to be realistic about the time and effort involved.
Yeah. But, despite the challenges, the rewards of owning a small pet they're just amazing.
Totally. They bring so much joy and companionship into our lives.
It's that unconditional love.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. From choosing the right pet, to setting up their home, to keeping them happy, healthy, and entertained. But ultimately, it all comes down to building that special bond with your little roommate.
Yeah, that's where the real magic happens.
Now, let's move on to another important aspect of small pet ownership.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the, practical stuff and like the emotional side of having a small pet in your apartment. But is there anything else we need to like consider?
I think it's really important to think about, the responsible pet ownership part of it. And that's not just about, giving them food and water and cuddles, but
Yeah.
it's also about being aware of, like, the legal and ethical considerations.
Yeah, especially in an apartment setting.
Yeah, good point. So
Yeah.
legalities first. I mean, before you even think about getting a pet, you got to make sure your apartment even allows them, right? Right. You'd be surprised how many people overlook this, but like a lot of leases have specific clauses about pets. And so
Yeah.
you really got to like read your lease agreement carefully and, talk to your landlord before you bring any animal home.
Yeah, it's always better to be upfront and avoid any, surprises down the road. Are there like any other legal things to keep in mind?
Well, some buildings might have, additional rules or fees related to pets. Like they might have designated areas for pet walking or, restrictions on certain breeds. It's always a good idea to just ask your landlord or the building management about any like specific rules they have.
So it's not just about like are pets allowed, it's about like what are the specific rules?
Okay.
Got it. Now, what about the ethical side of things?
Right. So this is where we go beyond like just the legal stuff and we think about, the well-being of the animals. We want to make sure we're giving our pets an environment that, really meets their needs, both like physically and mentally.
Yeah. So we talked about cage size and enrichment, but are there any other like ethical considerations that are specific to, apartment living?
Well, I think noise levels are a big one. Even small pets can make noise. And in an apartment building where you have close neighbors, it can be an issue.
Right. Nobody wants to be that neighbor.
Exactly. So, for nocturnal pets like hamsters,
Right.
you can, put their cage in a room that's farther away from shared walls.
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
And for more vocal pets, guinea pigs or birds, maybe think about like some soundproofing.
Soundproofing in an apartment.
Yeah, like, even just rugs and curtains can help absorb some of the noise.
Wow. So many things to think about. Okay. So, you got to be mindful of your neighbors, but you also want to make sure your pet has, a good space. It's all about finding that like balance. What about the financial side of, pet ownership? I mean, it's not just about the initial cost of getting the pet.
No, definitely not. Vet bills, food, bedding, toys, and then, those unexpected emergencies, it can all add up.
Yeah.
So it's really important to kind of factor that in before you bring a pet home. Make sure you can, really afford to take care of them.
Yeah, you got to be financially prepared for those like unexpected vet visits or special dietary needs. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored, all the benefits and the challenges and the practicalities and the ethical considerations of having a small pet in an apartment.
It's been quite a journey. From choosing the right pet to, figuring out how to create a space that works for both of you.
Yeah. And I think it all comes down to like really finding that perfect match between your lifestyle, your living situation, and the needs of your future pet. It's a big decision, but it's so rewarding.
Absolutely. Sharing your life with a pet can bring so much joy.
So to everyone out there who's, thinking about adding a furry, feathery, or even scaly friend to their apartment, we say, welcome to the club.
And remember, it's not just about finding a pet. It's about finding a friend.
A friend who's going to, like, enrich your life in so many ways.
And teach you about, empathy and responsibility
Mm-hmm.
and unconditional love.
And on that note, we'll sign off. Happy pet parenting, everyone.